If you're Gen X and you hear the phrase, "I hanker for a hunk of cheese," chances are you hear the song already.
When I'm slow on the draw and I need something to chaw, I hanker for a hunk of cheese.
That weird, slightly chaotic energy from Time for Timer, led by one very strange little character, Timer.
Oh, howdy, partner. Time for Timer.
Now imagine if that energy had been built into something like Lunchables.
Lunch, it's Lunchables.
From Oscar Mayer.
Because that's just what I'm going to do today. I'm Scott Circlin. Join me in the Art Lab. Let's suit up. Here we are back in the Art Lab where we're reimagining Lunchables with a twist. What if Timer had his own brand of prepackaged snacks? We've already made Veggie Bites, but now on to probably the most iconic Timer snack of all time. I know you've been hankering for this one, so let's get started. As I start laying out the packaging for these Wagon Wheels, I want to take a deeper look into this weird little character named Timer. Because most people remember the songs, they remember the cheese, they remember the voice, but not everyone knows where Timer actually came from, or how much thought went into creating him in the first place. To understand Timer, you have to go back to the late 1960s and the early 1970s. A time when television, especially children's television, was starting to come under a lot of scrutiny. Parents, educators, and regulators were all asking the same question. What exactly are kids getting out of this small screen? And for networks like the American Broadcasting Company, that question came with pressure. Because Saturday morning cartoons were widely popular, but they weren't exactly known for being educational. So ABC, like other major networks, started experimenting with ways to inject learning into entertainment. Not full shows, not classroom-style programming, but short, bite-sized segments that could fit between the cartoons. These became known as interstitials. And that's where Time for Timer comes in. Unlike a lot of PSA characters, Timer wasn't created by an ad agency in the traditional sense. He came out of the television production pipeline. He was commissioned and aired by American Broadcasting Company and produced by DePatie Freeling Enterprises, the same studio behind the Pink Panther cartoons, which explains a lot about the tone, stylized, comedic, and a little offbeat. This wasn't just marketing, it was network-driven educational content, part of a broader push alongside Schoolhouse Rock to make Saturday morning TV more socially responsible. There was a real educational angle too. So, Timer fits in this weird intersection of education, entertainment, and public service messaging. But what exactly is Timer? Officially, Timer is described as an anamorphic representation of the body's internal time or biological clock. More specifically, he represents circadian rhythm, body timing. He lives inside the human body. He tells you when it's time to eat, sleep, etc. But Timer didn't just appear out of nowhere. The concept was part of a broader initiative to teach kids about health, nutrition, and how their body works, without making it feel like a lecture. It's a tricky balance because if it feels like school, kids tune out immediately. So, the approach they landed on was something different. Instead of presenting information directly, that's where it gets weird, and honestly, brilliant. He's described as a yellow blob figure with long limbs, a face, and a bow tie. Sometimes a top hat or costume variations, which means he's not meant to be literal anatomy, he's not food, he's not human, he's intentionally abstract. They wrapped it in music and just enough weirdness to make it memorable. Timer isn't a traditional mascot. He's not polished, he's not aspirational, he's a little chaotic, a little pushy, but honestly, kind of strange. But that's exactly why he works, because he doesn't feel like an authority figure. He feels like a guide. Someone who's dragging you into this world of food and nutrition, whether you plan to go there or not. Timer is designed to be flexible. He can appear anywhere, inside the body, in a kitchen, on a stage. Non-threatening, not gross anatomy, not preachy authority. Symbolic, he is the idea of it's time. You can almost think of him as a mascot for decision making about your body. If you want to keep up to date with all the awesome projects happening in the Art Lab, make sure to join my mailing list. You get articles, updates, and free downloads every month. And you can make your own comics and creative projects with the Comic Maker Starter Kit included in your free subscription. Join today at circworks.com. Even with the visual presentation in place, Timer still needed a voice. Timer's first appearance was in the long-form special, The Incredible, Indelible, Magical, Physical Mystery Trip, where he was voiced by Lynn Maxwell. Fans of Timer might find this version a little off because Timer would soon be recast. Lenny Winrib is the voice most people remember and defines the character. Fast-talking, musical, slightly chaotic, with vaudevillian showman energy. That performance is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. Without it, Timer is just a weird blob. With it, he becomes memorable. But it all had to start somewhere. Before the Time for Timer interstitials became widely known, the idea behind Timer was explored in longer form educational specials. These were more ambitious, and they really leaned into the idea of turning the human body into something you could explore. The first of these was the aforementioned The Incredible, Indelible, Magical, Physical Mystery Trip. And this is where things get interesting. Because instead of telling kids how the body works, this special turns it into a journey. A literal trip through the human body. Digestion, energy, movement, all of it becomes part of an animated, almost surreal experience. It's educational, but it's also imaginative. And you can see the DNA of what Timer would become. The second special, The Magical Mystery Trip Through Little Red's Head, takes the same idea, but shifts the focus to the brain. Now, instead of digestion and physical processes, they're talking about thinking, memory, how the brain works. And again, it's not presented in a dry clinical way. It's abstract, colorful, a little bizarre, but that's the point. Because the goal isn't just to inform, it's to make the information stick. And that philosophy carries directly into the interstitials. Once Time for Timer starts airing between cartoons, everything tightens up. The message gets shorter, sharper, more focused, but they don't lose that personality. If anything, they lean into it even more. And one of the most important tools they use is music, because if you can get kids to sing to something, you don't have to worry about them remembering it. They will, whether they want to or not. If you're enjoying this kind of deep dive behind the scenes creative work, if that's the case, I have a Patreon with links to my past projects along with templates and digital art files that go along with them. So join the fun on Patreon today. Which brings us to probably the most famous Timer segment of all, I Hanker for a Hunk of Cheese. And yeah, even just saying that title, you can probably hear it.
Bang, bang, bang. Oh, howdy, partner. Time for Timer.
Do you ever get that hungry feeling after school?
Boy, I do. I'm so hungry, I could eat a wagon wheel.
When I'm slow on the draw and I need something to chaw, I hanker for a hunk of cheese. When my 10-gallon hat's a feeling 5 gallons flat, I got something planned, which is little cheese sandwiches. Come on! Here's a great little snack to tide you over till dinner. If you want something delicious and nutritious, cheese is a super snack. Look, a wagon wheel. When my get up and go has got up and went, I hanker for a hunk of cheese. When I'm dancing, I hold down and my boots kind of slow down, or anytime I'm weak in the knees. I hanker for a hunk of, a slab or slice a chunk of, a snacker day is a winner, and yet won't spoil my dinner. I hanker for a hunk of cheese. Yahoo!
What makes this so effective isn't just the melody, it's the imagery. The idea of a wagon wheel of cheese. That visual is simple, slightly ridiculous, and instantly recognizable. And underneath all of it, it's teaching a very specific idea. Protein gives you energy, it helps you stay full, it fuels your body. But instead of saying it directly, it turns it into a craving, a want, a hankering. And that's a subtle but important shift because it reframes healthy food as something you desire, not something you were told to eat. Other shorts take different approaches. Some are more direct, like have a carrot, which is about as straightforward as it sounds. Others lean into metaphor, like you are what you eat, which connects food to identity and energy. And then you've got pieces like don't knock it till you try it, which is really all about mindset, about being open to new experiences. They all share the same core idea. Food isn't just fuel, it's a choice, and it's something you can think about. And that's what makes Timer so interesting as a character. Because he's not just selling you on specific food, he's shaping how you think about eating altogether. Now, compare that to something like Lunchables, which launched in the late 1980s, focused heavily on convenience and interaction, but didn't really have a guiding voice behind it. No character tying it all together, no personality shaping the experience. And that's where this whole project comes from. Because if you take the interactivity of Lunchables and combine it with the philosophy behind Timer, you get something a little more complete. So as I start building these wagon wheels, designing the packaging around the iconic cheese wheel idea, I'm not just referencing the aesthetic, I'm trying to capture that feeling. That slightly strange, almost memorable, educational, but fun tone that made these shorts work in the first place. Because at the end of the day, Timer wasn't just a character, he was a delivery system for ideas, for habits, for a way of thinking about food that stuck with people for decades. And the fact that we're talking about him now, still referencing these shorts, still remembering these songs, means they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They got in, they stuck, and they never really left. And now, we're just giving Timer a new place to live. Here, have a closer look. Well, there you have it. We now have 2 Time for Timer snacks, but I have an idea for one more, and you don't want to miss it. So, like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. And if you want to see more retro redesigns, make sure to click on this video right up here.
Hi there, Time for Timer, your roving reporter. I'm talking to you from inside a fantastic factory, your digestive system. You know what we build here? You! Not out of wood or metal, but out of food. You see, you are what you eat, from your head down to your feet. Things like meat and eggs and fish you need to build up muscle tissue. Uh-oh. Hello, appetite control, more protein. We need energy. Playing tennis today, you know. Whoops. All these motors in your body need a lot of fuel to go on, like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, vitamins, and so on. What's left over forms the building blocks you need, indeed, to grow on. Yes, you are what you swallow, so that next time you feel hollow, don't just fill your face with any old kind of treat. This goes for every kid or 6-foot athlete. All you really are is what you eat.